Hi, Roberta.
Hi, how are you doing?
Fine. How's it going?
It's going okay. I've had a day,
Oh boy.
but I'm here now.
And hopefully enjoying this new Zoom setup.
Yes, Zoom is such an upgrade from what we
Good.
had before. Although my first Zoom meeting I posted was for someone else in my department, and that did take a full practice session to iron out all of the kinks, even
Yep.
though we've all like Zoom isn't new, but somehow, setting it up for the first time, having not done it before for Somerville was different. But
Yep.
hopefully this will go more smoothly.
What it's worth, when I try to turn on my video, it says that I cannot start my video because the host has stopped it. I don't have a problem with that.
Oh, okay. Thank you for letting me know. That lets me know that I need to go in and fix that. Participants. Oh, I have to make all of you co-hosts. That was one of the things that we learned the other day. All right, so let me do this. Make co-host. Yes. Make co-host. Yes. Make co-host. Yes. All right, so you all should be able to turn on your cameras.
Bird.
There we go. Hey, John, Eric.
Ryan.
Hey, everybody.
Here. So this is our first stab at Zoom for these, is that right?
Yep.
Uh-huh. Is this a citywide change or all the other commissions joined at the same time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just navigate things here. Um,
It's a little different, but it's much more in our control than GoToMeeting was.
Yep.
Oh, and I've got an attendee. Ah, that's Molly Caviar. Okay. Let her in later.
Oops. Do we know who we're expecting or not expecting tonight for quorum and all that?
The only person that I know not to expect is Rose.
Okay. Oh, I might need to mute myself. Let's see.
Okay. And I have to make everyone co-hosts. Host. All right. So we have a quorum, but we're still expecting another um, couple of people.
Do we have a quorum there, Roberta?
We do have a quorum if you want to get started. I think we might anticipate at least one more person joining us, but you can get started.
Okay. First, just the housekeeping. I'm Heather Highmark. I'm the chair of the committee. And pursuant to Chapter 2 in the Acts of 2023, this meeting of the Somerville Community Preservation Committee will be conducted via remote participation. We will have a video recording available upon request or as soon as possible after the meeting. I'd like to just kick off by welcoming Joe Capuano, who has joined the group as a rep for the Housing Authority. So if you want to unmute Joe, and just
How you guys doing? I think, is this unmuted?
Yes.
You are.
Okay, all right, sorry. How you guys doing? Nice to be here. Glad I could help fill in for James Zamer, who couldn't do it anymore. So I kind of picked up the torch, and now I'm just gonna copy everything you guys say, so it's pretty easy for
right.
me. I'm just joking.
Okay. Well, welcome, and we're really glad to have you. And I think now we have a full committee, right? We have no more empty positions. So that's
We
a
do.
small victory in these days where a lot of committees are struggling to have a full panel. So let's see. Maybe we'll just, for Joe's sake, just quickly go around and have people introduce themselves. Do we have any guests from the public tonight?
We do. Right now I see Molly Caviar, who is representing Just to
Applicant.
Start, the applicant.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then it's for Molly's benefit as well. So I'm Heather Highmark. I'm a member at large, and I'm the current chair of the committee. And I'll call on Ryan to go next.
Hi, I'm Ryan Kirchhoff, first year member, general public representative. And let's have Jahan next.
Thanks so much, Ryan. My name is Jahan Habib. I'm a member from the planning board. This is my second year. Laura.
Yeah, hi, I'm Laura Boretsky. I'm one of the community representatives. I think this is going on my 5th year. And I'll pass it to who's left? John.
Hi, I'm John Bronican. I am a representative of the Public Space and Urban Forestry Department, and I started about like 6 months ago. And I'll pass this to Eric.
Hi, I'm Eric. I'm a fairly new member also, and I'm a member from the Historic Commission. And who's left here? It looks like on my square it would be Alan.
My name is Alan Anasio, Director of Finance and Community Development for the Administration Division of OSPCD, which manages the CPA program.
Great, thank you. Nice to meet you guys.
And David, we have one last member. David?
Yes. Hi, sorry I'm late. David Turin. I am the Conservation Commission member, representing Conservation Commission on the committee.
And then our co-chair, Rose White, had a last minute development and is not able to join us tonight. So there's one other member that you're not meeting. I think with that, I'll hand it over to you, Roberta, to pull up the agenda and kick us off.
Let me share my screen. I have not done this yet on Zoom, so I can, there we go. I can choose the files that I want to share. So you should just be looking at the agenda right now. Great.
Yeah.
Yes.
So first on the agenda is approval of meeting minutes, and we have minutes from June 28 and July 26.
All right, and it is possible for people who did not attend isn't that right? We always talk about this each time. If you weren't there, you're still able to vote, but you could also abstain. So do we have any corrections or amendments to either the June 28th or the July 26th? Let's do these together. Perhaps it might save some time.
On the July 26th minutes, I noticed that Art Farm was referred to as Art Barn a couple times and thought maybe that was a typo. That's the only thing I saw that needed correcting on either document.
Let me make a note of that. There is.
That's on page 2.
Yeah, I think I asked about that during the meeting and was told that a portion of it is the Art Barn. I think,
Okay.
if I remember it correctly. Then I was told it was not an error.
Okay. So that's
But I
all
mean,
thought.
definitely check, because my recollections are often
There
not
is-
perfect.
There is an element of the park that's referred to as Art Barn, but I'll make
Okay.
sure that I wasn't actually referring to Art Barn instead of Art Farm.
That is all I saw. I thought they looked fine and everything looked fine.
Anyone else have corrections or comments to the minutes? Shall we have a movement to approve?
We do both at once or should it be 2 separate motions?
Well,
I
I
think-
was going to not vote on the meeting I missed. But did I miss a meeting? Actually, maybe I didn't. No, I think I was at both meetings. Never mind. Never mind. So
Yeah,
I'm fine either way.
Yeah, I think if no one objects, if there's not a reason to do them separately, let's do them together in one motion. Okay,
Yeah, I'll make the motion to approve them both. This is Laura.
thank you.
I can second.
Thank you. You want to take the roll?
Yes. David,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Heather,
I am abstaining.
Jahan,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Laura,
Yep.
Joe,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
and I think that's everyone. Did I miss anyone? Great.
No, because Alan is here tonight in support, not as a voting committee member, right?
Yes.
I hate to do this. I actually was trying to play catch up as I was voting. In this July 26th meeting notes on the Henry Henson Park, it says that
Yes.
it passed unanimously. I actually voted against it.
Oh, okay. I think I might have, I think
Roberta,
I had the numbers correct, but I might not have changed the language. It might be a copy paste error. So yes, thank you for that correction. That's important.
Roberta, if I may, I was actually looking at the same thing. I do see that the motion passed 5-2. The 7-0 unanimous is on the passing it with conditions. So I
Oh, I'm
believe it is
sorry.
correct.
Yeah, I scrolled down too far.
Okay.
Yeah, it says 5-2. Okay,
All right.
I'm sorry.
That's quite all right.
Comment
wouldn't put it-
retracted.
I wouldn't put it past me to make that mistake. So I'm glad you were paying close attention.
Well, not close enough.
All right. Thank you. So next on the agenda is off-cycle funding requests. We received 2 and we have Molly Caviar is in attendance representing Just to Start. So I am going to bring Molly Caviar in as a panelist so that we can see Molly's video and invite Molly to present her project. All right.
Great. Hello?
Hello, Molly.
Oh.
You are able to turn your video on now if you choose.
Okay, fantastic. And I can share my screen as well.
you can try that. And if not, I have your project open. So
Okay, fantastic. One moment. Okay. Can you see this?
yes.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me and for considering Just to Start's application. I'm, like Roberta said, my name is Molly Caviar, and I'm here to talk to you all about the preservation of a historic window at our 24 Webster Avenue project. Oh, sorry. For those who are not familiar, Just to Start is a community development corporation with 50 years of experience working in Cambridge and surrounding communities. Besides developing affordable housing, we have workforce development programs and housing and stabilization services that we provide. We're somewhat new to Somerville still, but we do have one existing building at 301 Medford Street with 6 affordable units. We also provide mediation and housing stabilization services and rental and security deposit assistance in Somerville. And we hold spots for Somerville residents in our biomedical and IT career training programs. But our 24 Webster Avenue site is located very close to Union Square, very close to the Green Line T station. And it was a building that was built in 1921 by the St. Joseph School, located across the street as an annex. But in recent years, it's been used more as like a workshop and artisan space. And we bought the property in 2020 and signed an MOA with the Historic Commission in 2021 as kind of the history of the site. This is what it looks like. I'm sorry the picture is a little blurry. I was trying to compress to make it easy to email. But you can see, so we have permission to demolish the building, but as part of the MOA with the Historic Commission, you know, the plan is to remove and preserve this window above the entrance and reinstall it into the new building, which I forgot to mention will be 100% affordable apartments. We're expecting about 42 apartments. Though our request to you all is just regarding the window and historic funds. So we did go over our design with the Historic Commission and was really pleased that we only received positive feedback at that meeting. And you can see here, the window will be installed at the entrance of the building, kind of at ground level, so bringing it down so that residents, visitors to the building will be able to interact with it like eye to eye. And it's going to be visible from both Everett Street and Webster Avenue by pedestrians, cars, bicyclists, all of that. This is the view from inside the building. So it's going to act kind of as a wall between the lobby and the community rooms. So you'll be able to see it from both sides. There it is. You can see it's quite large. The full surround is about 14 feet high. This is from the community room view.
So just to be clear, the windows being installed kind of inside the building is a
Yes,
is
that's
a
correct.
barrier. It's kind of like a barrier between two spaces.
Yep, exactly.
Mhm.
And so our request to you includes, you know, the bulk of it is for the removal and restoration and reinstallation. And we received a quote from Heritage Restoration for this price. And then we also included some requests for the architectural design and project management, CPA signage and contingency. And I'll just flag that there's certain things that we've been told they won't be able to really assess until the window's actually removed, in terms of parts that might need to be replaced. And so that's where I think the contingency really comes in handy. And yeah, that was the presentation. That's my contact info. So I can stop sharing my screen unless there's things you all want to go back to.
Thank you, Molly.
Yep, thank you.
So I just wanted to provide a little bit of context. The reason for your off-cycle request, even though you submitted your application through the regular cycle, but you are looking for additional state funding for the project, and you need to show a local commitment in order to apply for the state funding. And that local commitment needs to be made by the end of the calendar year. So this is really the last chance that the CPC has to make that determination, that funding recommendation, in order to get it to City Council before the end of the calendar year.
That's right.
So are there any questions from the committee on the proposal or the request? So I have a couple. I can jump in with mine. So yeah, I understand that you're going into the mini round. Congratulations for being invited to that. That's great. And I hope you get funded. I think that if approved, we'll probably make it contingent upon a successful application to in the mini round. But looking at the budget, you had the 10K contingency along with the 9K for architectural designs and another 10K for project management. And I just wonder if that's sort of like contingency times 3, because it feels like you have an architectural team involved. Is this wall partition really a $9,000 architectural ad? And is the project management of that so discrete that it needs this entirely separate budget? So I can understand the need for a contingency, but I guess between the three of them, it's about 30,000. And so if we can just talk about those numbers a little bit, that would be very helpful.
Absolutely. I will say, you know, the 9,000 for architectural fee is about less than 1% of our overall architectural contract. And I did not share all of those budgets numbers with you all, but it's hard to say how much time, you know, I didn't get exact numbers from them on the hours they're spending on the window and will spend during construction. That's something that I could ask for, but thought that 1% might be a good estimate. And yeah, I think the project I see where you're coming from, and I'm definitely willing to, I think, move it based on what the committee feels comfortable with. Absolutely.
Ryan?
I'm
sorry.
holding my comments. Go ahead, Heather, if you want to ask one.
No. I thought you were
Fixing my specs. No, I'm good.
Oh,
Go
okay.
ahead.
All right. Okay. Yeah, no, I think that was my main question. So I guess, you know, sort of to the committee, I personally think it's a great project and a great spot. The Historic Commission letter that's in the application was quite clear about wanting to preserve this Turkish window and have it incorporated into the building. So they're sort of doing exactly what was asked of them. And it does fall into the preservation category in terms of what we're allowed to fund. It's the fact that it's off cycle is mostly strategic from their point of view, and that they need to be able to strengthen their application as much as possible by showing this local commitment. So Is there anyone who is uncomfortable with the off-cycle application or just like kind of the idea of the project or the scope of the project?
I guess I I just wondered how it will impact how it will impact our pots and our pot of money, and you know, it'll ultimately mean that we have less for the incoming applications, some of which we're gonna look at later. Right? I mean,
Roberta, could you address that in terms of fiscal year budgets and how that would impact it?
Yes, so I can share the spreadsheet that I prepared that shows the whole picture of projects that we have.
great.
I just have it ready on my screen.
Well, while you're doing that, is this the same amount that was requested in the normal cycle? Or is it essentially the same? I think.
So this is an increase over what was in the estimated amount that was in the eligibility determination form. And the eligibility determination form estimate is really just for our planning purposes, that the full application is the estimate that Justice Start has documented.
Okay, but it was for the same project, for the same work?
It's for the same project, for the same work.
Okay.
So this is the spreadsheet that we have, and I thought I had bolded the Justice Start and the Somerville Museum. So the Justice Start is the amount, and if that wasn't bold, then I'm missing. You know what? I had gathered more information for you, and I think I accidentally overwrote the file that I had open that had the new information, but I can recover that easily enough in a bit. Let me actually okay. So the total amount that is requested and or already awarded. So awarded is what we awarded at our previous meeting. And the full requests for all of the applications which have been submitted, and so we have their actual requests in this column. So the total is, oh, and these numbers don't align. My apologies, I had a much more organized presentation. Oh, these numbers don't align because I think this does not include, okay, so this because this has already been awarded. So it's double counting. So actually, let me yes.
I think the kind of the take home is gonna be that there are funds partly due to the budgeted reserve for that we can still evaluate requests incoming, the requests that are new requests on the regular cycle, as well as be able to meet this request.
Heather, if I may, the way that I was reading this before, I think the key takeaway for me was that with these two out of round applications we're going to be hearing about tonight, these would essentially be what would push us into utilizing what's listed here as the undesignated fund. I think
Correct.
it maybe it's helpful to understand more about that and what that is, and if we actually access it, or if we're competing with other folks for that money. But that to me was the bottom line when I was looking at this earlier.
Yeah, and since we have a lot of newer members, so Molly, just to hang with us for a moment while we sort of go through this budget stuff. The undesignated fund is when we when we vote on our budget, we often leave a certain amount of funds that are not earmarked for either affordable housing, open space and rec, or historic preservation, in order to have some flexibility in the budget with the character of that year's grant cycle, because sometimes there's more in one category than another, or off cycle things, so it's like it gives us some room to maneuver. And then there's also the funds that go back into the pot from the administrative budget that aren't used each year, because we typically award to that budget sort of the amount the maximum that we're legally able, and then it rolls over whatever doesn't get used for consultants, Roberta, tabling, like these kind of little expenses goes back into the pot as well. So Roberta, if you want to add on to what I just said or correct anything I may have said that was misleading.
Yes, sorry, as you're speaking, I'm trying to drop in the numbers so that you have them for what the carried over funds are. So the carried over funds are what were not spent in previous years. And for the most part, that is unspent administrative funds, but there are also sometimes unspent programmatic funds that are carried over. And also sometimes there is additional revenue above what had been budgeted, and that gets carried into the undesignated fund balance. So I had done some research today to identify what is actually in the undesignated fund balance, and the funds that are left over, carried over in the reserves for open space and historic preservation. So the fields that I've just filled in represent the money that we've carried over from previous years that is actually available to spend right now. For the benefit of the newer members, there's one project that the committee approved previously that will come out of open space, recreation, and the undesignated fund balance that has not yet been approved by City Council. That's the Art Farm project. And so the numbers that I'm showing in the table that you see on the screen are already subtracting out the Art Farm project. So this is funding from prior years that is carried over. And as we learned in our discussions last year, it's a good practice to keep a healthy amount in the undesignated fund balance to carry over year to year, because it helps us to balance the budget in a number of ways. But last year, recognizing that that number had grown substantially large, and we had a lot of requests for funding that exceeded the current year's revenue, we dipped into the undesignated fund balance by over $400,000 last year. And then we also received unanticipated revenues. So approximately $300,000 is the amount that the undesignated fund balance went down from the prior year. So that should provide some context as to the rate that the undesignated fund balance can be anticipated to change without the committee using any of those funds. So it was approximately $100,000 increase over the previous year, except for the committee having used $400,000, so that the balance was a $300,000 decrease last year.
So does this also reflect the preservation, the small grants preservation monies that have been awarded and is being returned because they're not going to launch that program in the form that they were going to launch it in?
Those funds will increase the carried over balance next year in the Historic Preservation Fund. So that's a $150,000 grant that was canceled, but it has to be set aside for a year until that's certified back into our fund balance. So next year we'll see that $150,000 in this historic preservation carried over category.
All right. Other questions or comments from anyone?
Yeah, Eric
So-
here. Oh, sorry, I interrupted somebody.
No, please.
Well, just to grasp the big picture then, if I look at the chart, the subtotal awarded is things that have already been awarded out of cycle, the 606,829,
Yes,
which is the Henry Hansen and the other thing, I forgot what the other one was.
Hanson Brown Schoolyard and the Somerville Museum.
Okay. Right, and then Somerville Museum is coming back tonight for more. And then requested is additional stuff that is on cycle and also being requested tonight as additional out of cycle things.
Yes, requested is everything in this column that is not in fact, I should take this out of this column so that it's not confusing. So
Okay,
everything that's left in this column is requested.
so at this point, the grand whopping total that we're looking at is 1,390,564.
Yes,
And we have available, so we're like 40,000 over or so the total. We have available 13,470, 526
yes.
or so. Okay, so we're pretty close. But
Yeah.
we would have to dig into our reserve funds. Now, if we were to dig into our reserve funds, if we did that, we would start off by picking away at the allotted amounts within the designated subcategories. Is that the
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
Because once they're awarded to a
Oh,
We lose Heather?
Right,
Well-
yeah, maybe.
okay. Well, she'd answered my question. So that I was just asked, those are my questions. No, I see it over here in the red, 43,038. Okay. All right.
So I actually have another question, and not to dig too deeply into kind of maybe it's a little more philosophical, which is the idea of an off-site, like I understand, clearly the base, the justification for switching this from a normal cycle to an off-cycle request in order to try and, meet a expectation by the state that, to show local support. What I'm a little concerned about is the idea of folks moving to off-cycle funding so that perhaps they're not in competition with the regular cycle projects. And just kind of wanting to try and figure out how do we keep the playing field level, so to speak. You know, and
As
if,
in-
yeah,
I mean, I don't want to interrupt your question. I think this is a good discussion for the committee. Just as a matter of principle, my request, a reason why each of these off-cycle applications is submitted with a cover letter that explains the reason for the off-cycle request. So I think it is the committee's discretion to determine whether you accept the reasoning for
Mhm.
having made the request off-cycle.
yeah, and so, you know, so for me, if it were an on-cycle request, we would be weighing it with the, you know, we'd have, you know, X amount that we're, you know, comfortable spending in that year, and we would then have to weigh the applications against one another in the, you know, if we couldn't afford to fund everything. Off-cycle is kind of a little bit of a different review. You know, we're looking at evaluating on its own merits, but it's not being compared to any of the other projects. And that's what I'm kind of trying to wrap my mind around. You know, with the off-cycle that I've entertained in the period I've been on, it's generally been, you know, we funded something and now they're either changing it or a project came in and it was more expensive, you know, than they were anticipating, and they need more money to kind of make up that shortfall. You know, but this was a little bit different. Now, that said, I'm not particularly uncomfortable, because my sense is if this were our normal, if we were reviewing this project on its own merits compared to all the others, I would also be comfortable supporting it. It's just more the concept of it, I guess, of a precedent of moving things off cycle and then getting out from that, you know, that competition with the other projects.
It's a good point on that. And you know, is there some kind of official threshold, or the fact that this money that we're currently, the case we're hearing right now is will leverage the ability to get a bunch more for the project. It sounds like it kind of creates a, I wouldn't say unique situation, but a not very common situation for them. Versus if we have, before me, have there been off-cycle requests that we've turned down for reasons that seem too mundane, like, I don't know, getting a contractor started earlier before they go to a different project or things like that?
In my time, I have not seen an off-cycle request rejected for reason of being off-cycle.
And not worthy enough of
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Have we received off-cycle requests for wholly new projects that weren't like I was suggesting before, because of a budget shortfall on a project that that we approved in a normal cycle?
Well, the Brown School was a new application to the CPC. They were receiving funding through other sources from this, from other city sources, but had not requested CPA funds for construction prior to last month.
And I forget, and we funded that off cycle?
Yes.
Okay, so that seems kind of comparable.
And wasn't Lucy Davis Park a new one? That was definitely off cycle. You know, over on Broadway, near Powderhouse Circle, kind of.
That was before my time.
That is
so
before
I
your time.
don't- Yeah, I don't remember that, whether that was off cycle or not. That may
It
have
was
been.
definitely off cycle, and I think it was new, and I can't remember what the pressing circumstance was, but we approved it.
Yeah.
We approved it, and I think David raises an interesting point. This particular request seems especially time sensitive to me, because they need the local commitment in a certain time frame in order for them to get the match, and that's what's going to make, you know, having the different pots of money, the money from the different sources is what's going to make it viable at all.
Yeah, no, and I do want to be clear, I am raising it kind of more as a, is this like kind of like the first step down a slippery slope of other people saying, "Well, we want to be reviewed off cycle too."
Right.
And
Right.
I think if we feel like we have enough discretion to kind of control when we're willing to entertain it and when we're not, and we're
Right.
doing it kind of consciously, I don't have a problem with that.
I mean, the other noteworthy thing about this project is it crosses over two different categories, right? Or multiple, right? It's affordable housing project, it's historic preservation. We're obviously funding this out of historic preservation pot of money, but we are funding a source of affordable housing. And so I think,
Yeah.
I'd be ready to make a motion to support it myself.
Great, I'm back. I can't seem to enable my camera, but I am
I'm
back.
sorry. I will enable your camera. Yeah, I have to make you a co-host again. I might be able to change the settings so that you all can automatically share your cameras.
Okay.
Did we want to talk any more about Heather's initial question about the actual budget?
Oh, the 9,000, right, the contingency.
Yeah. I mean, I'm okay with it with the, with the expectation that if all of those contingencies don't end up being triggered, we get the money back.
That would be a difficult thing to track accounting wise, but
But I would assume that's the principle.
yeah, that's the principle.
I prepared a letter, a draft letter. So let me open that.
If you're hesitant about the contingencies, would you wanna write it so we allocate the funds for the amount for the architectural and construction administration and construction services, and then say that you can come back for the $20,000 of contingencies if needed, and then that gives us the option to allocate that money elsewhere in the time being, and then if needed, they can come back for that.
Yeah, that would be another way to do it. Is to award slightly less than the request, and then so yeah, I think it added up to like 30 because there was the 10K contingency and then the 10K project management and the 9K architectural. So it's sort of close to our overrun for the for the budget.
I do not have a vote. I do not serve on the committee, but I would discourage eliminating the construction contingency from the project, because we've had nothing but projects that require all of the contingency and more in the couple of years that I've been supporting you.
Yes, that is
Yeah, I would leave the construction contingency. I guess it's really the architectural and the project management. To have this discrete window when you already have a project manager for the entire construction project, to think that this aspect of it is a 10K project management, this feels overly conservative to me.
Really, unless it's extending the schedule for some reason, the project has to take an extra week or two. I don't see how it could actually cause any additional fee from the management angle.
Yeah.
If I may, and Molly may speak to this as well. I'm guessing that this is project management because it's different personnel. It's folks that are working for the actual the rehabilitation, the historic rehabilitation company. So whereas there's project management on behalf of the regular architect and on behalf of the GC. I would guess these are hours, billable hours being included in the contract by other personnel. Molly, is that more or less accurate?
Question. And I'm realizing I probably should have maybe talked with Roberta about it specifically. I wasn't thinking about those items as being contingencies per se, and the project management fee was not included in the scope from Heritage Restoration, who would be, I think their project management is baked into the 83,000
I think
fee
so.
that they gave us.
Yeah.
So I was thinking of it more as funds for Just a Start project management, which yes, we are already managing the overall project. So as just kind of supporting that. Yeah.
And I don't recall, did the detailed budget that you provided break out the project management versus architectural design?
In the itemized
Yeah,
budget?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
let me see if I can pull that up. Just because you did indicate that that there are unknowns once the window is removed, that they may find that there are some elements of the window that need some treatment that wasn't anticipated, and that could actually be a reason to require architectural contingency.
Yes, true. I mean, the architect, most of, the design that we presented has been created. However, they're going to be designing a frame for the window to be installed into, which is still yet to come, as well as, I guess, the cost of that frame. So
Mhm.
that might,
Well, probably a structural engineer needs to weigh in. I mean, I know affordable housing is very expensive and difficult to do. So I don't want to nitpick over $10,000 that much. So I'm willing to go with the committee's recommendations. I wanted to understand those numbers better, and personally, I don't see the point in like awarding it all minus 5K or something like that. That just seems sort of in the grand scope of the project to be not worth it. But I would like to hear how other people would like to handle this situation regarding the budget.
Well, as an architect, I mean, there is undoubtedly some amount of fee that's associated with that scope. Someone had to design the apparatus that it's getting mounted into and coordinate, interaction with the restoration company, and sort of just like behind the scenes legwork. And is it $10,000? I have no idea what it is. Is it additional fee that's really being incurred? I don't know if is there a fee fixed based on something else, but as you said, it gets kind of really into the weeds. And I don't think it's really our place to decide that it should be 6,800 or 7, whatever. So I'm personally comfortable with that scope remaining in this as it is.
I'll agree with Eric on that.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's going to be important if we're all agreeing to fund this portion of the project to ensure that it will be successful from a budgetary and also completeness perspective. So I'm definitely in favor.
Okay.
All right. So are we ready to have a motion?
Heather and Roberta, quickly before any motion does come in, I do want to disclose I do have projects of my own that will be competing in the mini round, likely against this project. So if you'd like me to recuse myself, I'm happy to do so. I don't think there's a conflict, but I wanted to note that.
Okay. So, is anyone ready to make a motion?
I'll make the motion. I kind of have to before.
Hmm.
So I would make a motion to approve the request as written.
Contingent on the successful application to the mini
That's
grant.
right, contingent upon the successful mini grant application.
I can second that.
As a clarification, so does that mean, I'm trying to figure out what that means if they don't get that? Does that mean we're just not funding it off cycle and then we'll reevaluate it during the normal cycle?
Well, they
Um,
probably aren't able to do the project if they don't get the major.
Yeah. No, but I
Funding.
was just trying to think of it from our narrow.
Yeah, why is it contingent? What happens if you are not selected in the mini cycle?
Yeah, so I think for us, yes, the project will not move forward without the state funding. However, if we don't get the mini round funding, we'll apply again in the state's normal cycle, which typically happens mid-January. So I think having a commitment letter would still put us in a good place for reapplying in that round. So not to
So we would just
overstep, but
hold it
maybe
a
it could
step.
be just contingent on state funding at all.
Yeah.
Is that kind of become circular logic though? If we say that we're supported contingent on the getting state funding and the state is saying we'll support it contingent on it being, having local support.
I
I
am
guess I'm trying to figure out what else what do we get, because if they don't get the state support, it sounds like they're not going to proceed in this funding cycle anyway.
And then I imagine, so we do have a condition already in our letter, our draft letter that says unspent funds will be returned to the CPA fund, but also the CPA funded portion of the project must be initiated within 3 years unless an extension is granted by the CPC. So if Just to Start has not been able to obtain state funding within 3 years, then we would expect to have a conversation with Just to Start and ask that they cancel the project if they haven't done so already. So I think that's baked into our recommendation already.
Okay. All right.
In
Good.
fact, I'm gonna share the screen. So I'm sorry, we started to have, I think, Laura, did you make a motion?
I did, yeah.
And was that seconded?
I seconded it.
All right, so I will call the roll. Eric,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Jahan,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Ryan. I don't think you need to recuse yourself. Yes,
Thank you,
And-
yes.
David,
Yes,
right? So the.
as long as you're voting yes, Ryan.
Motion passes unanimously. And before we move on, I have on the screen a draft recommendation letter with funding conditions. And did the committee want to make any edits to the funding conditions before we send this recommendation letter to City Council?
Nope.
Looks good to me.
All right.
Thank you all very much.
You're welcome. Good
Thank
luck
you.
with the project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Let's do share. And so next on the agenda is another off-cycle application from the Somerville Museum to supplement the funding that was awarded at our previous meeting. And Barbara Mangum is in attendance, and I will promote Barbara to a panelist. Barbara's a panelist, and now I will promote her to a co-host so that we can allow Barbara. Barbara, you should be able to share your video now if you choose.
Hi. Hi, everybody. I see a
Hello, thank you.
funny light thing going on. Hi, thank you very much for allowing me to request these funds from you all again. Basically what happened is, I think you all recall about the window restoration project that the museum has at the basement level, where we have to restore 3 windows back to their original configuration. This is required by the Massachusetts Historical Commission because we received money from the Mass Cultural Facility Fund. And as a requirement, the MHC has to approve it. We had gone through the Somerville Historic Preservation Commission initially, and we had gotten approval to go ahead and brick up these windows, 4 windows actually. And then when it came time to get the money from MHC, we discovered that, very surprisingly to me, that a particular person at MHC was vehemently against bricking up the windows and wants them all restored. So we agreed that this is what we would do. And so I had presented to you earlier a request for an increase of 98,000. That was brought about for a number of reasons, including other cost overruns with the museum. And it also had in there a figure of about 45,000, which is what I thought it would cost to renovate or restore these windows. And when the price came in from Stack, who's the contractor that we're dealing with, and they've been very good, the cost was closer to 95,000. So as a result, you know, I've gone back and because also Roberta had been suggesting that we have a 20%, you know, contingency, and just given the way that these costs have risen, you know, we're now asking for another 68,000. I mean, I can tell you exactly how much, but I'd have to look it up.
67,478.
Thank you. So that is my request. And that the hope is then that when we get the money, we can go ahead with the project, and then we can get it done before winter. And also with Stack still involved with us.
Are there any questions from the committee?
I have a question. I'm looking at the Stack's cost summary.
Okay.
Is this purely just to open up those brick windows and
No, so I mean, mainly it is. I mean, that's the large part. I think there's 5,000 in there for doing repair and restoration on the original windows that are there, because once the architects started looking at how we were going to be restoring these 3 windows, so the MHC agreed that we could keep 1 window that had already been non-functional, you know, as still non-functional, so we don't have to remove the brick from that one. But we still at the museum have, I think it's at least 4 original windows. So they're primarily along the driveway and in the corner, way back in the corner. So Andrew Heidebrecht is our architect from Peter Quinn Architects, and he was looking at the others and he said they're in really bad shape when he's afraid that we're going to get water in our basement. And so, you know, it seemed that this would be a good time to do that work as well. And I think they've got in there about 9,000 that goes toward that. Let me see.
I'm projecting on the screen the the budget from
Right.
Stack. I don't know if you can see the screen share.
Yes.
I can see that. I'm just trying to think. I thought there was somewhere in there, maybe.
Well, I'm saying, for
continues.
example, like rough carpentry for $16,000, wondering why masonry openings would need $16,000 of rough carpentry, for example, or $5,300.
well, Yeah, so it's a complicated project because we're not, first of all, we're not going to open the windows totally because on the inside is, of course, our renovated collection storage space, which is why we had actually wanted this bricked up in the first place, because we wanted to do, moisture and water vapor prevention mitigation, basically. And so to have those windows bricked up. So what we've now, they were bricked up, actually not just with brick. Initially it was CMU, and then it's a brick veneer. And then, so what they'll be doing is they're trying to remove the brick, and then they will be taking down the CMU until there's just about a couple inches of that left. And then that will be the back now of this false window that goes in. So the windows are not operational, they're just to look good, but they're inset quite far, in about 8 to 9 inches into the building fabric. And so we have windows that we'll be getting, and I think some of that carpentry is just involved in doing, I think, that project and then also the other projects. But yeah, I wouldn't think it's actually going to be that much. But honestly, I thought the whole thing was going to be a lot less.
Yeah, well, it's sort of a high number for what the scope. So I'm wondering if there's actually more other requirements. Has the architect you're working with reviewed this, and this?
Oh yeah,
was on there? They're comfortable.
yeah, yeah. I mean, when I was talking with Stack, with our foreman on there, and we kept talking about, I mean, there has to be a little flashing down at the bottom of the new window that's going in there, so that, and the sill is not, I mean, it has a contour, even though it looks from the outside just like it's a big rectangular block, it's not. It actually has a contour to fit into that window. And so everything just is a little more complex than it would seem that it needs to be, but there are good reasons for it. But yeah, I mean, I can also get, I don't know exactly how you would want to do that, but to get, the architect to talk to you all about it if you wanted.
Well, no, just
But
knowing somebody
he's
who's
very involved with this, and he did the specifications and all of that.
okay. But you have somebody who's representing you in this process, who feels that this is an accurate number for the scope. So that's
Yes, I do feel that it is now an accurate number.
okay. Thank you. Here's the devil's advocate question for you. Is the money that you're getting from Mass Historic more or less than this amount?
It was 140,000. So at least it's a little more.
Sort of a wash then. Yeah, right. Yeah, not
I
quite.
know. Honestly, I mean, if we were never going to go back to MHC again, I mean, to Mass Culture Facility Fund again, I might be tempted not to do the work, because I really do think that we made a good decision, and everyone I have showed it to has just, scratched their head as to why MHC is doing this.
Yeah,
but MHC, well, it's Paul Holtz at MHC, and I think he's just like, windows are sacrosanct. And I mean, I used to be on the Historic Preservation Commission. I know how important windows are, but like, they are not particularly visible here. And when I mentioned this to Paul, he was like, well, we're MHC, we don't care about that. So
yeah, well, I was part of the group that approved the blocking into those windows, so I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I wish we could go back and talk with them, but if we did that, I mean, I looked into this and it looks like we would have to go through arbitration. It just seems like maybe it's as, I don't know, it would then certainly delay everything. And you know, although I would get some satisfaction if it came our way, it would again be one of these things that is like hard. And also, I do want to keep a good relationship with MHC. Generally, we've had a really good relationship with them, and right now, with doing this work, we have a good relationship again.
Okay.
Yeah, but I kind of agree with you. I mean, I kind of wonder what they would say if we said, gee, this is going to be, you know, not 38,000 or whatever the original number was, but 100 and, you know, whatever.
Well,
1,000.
95, that's what it
Yeah.
is now.
You know,
so-
and you know, would they still say, you know, yes,
Well,
this
I
is how we should spend money?
talked with him about it being expensive, you know, and in fact, that was his first comment back, you know, when he was very upset with me, was that, and you're going to come and tell me how expensive this is.
Yeah.
And, you know, he was, no, that, he was
Yeah, so
implacable.
he's not likely to be sympathetic about that part.
Nope, he's just gonna be like, yeah, well, you should have come to me at the beginning of the project, which I agree, I should have now, but I also had thought that I honestly did not see there was gonna be a problem. Honestly, I still think we made the right choice in bricking up
Yeah.
the windows.
Well, it helps sustain a use that you had in the basement that entailed preservation and storing things. I mean, there's
Absolutely,
a bigger goal to that too. So
yeah.
that's, I guess it's a dead horse at this point, but I think, you know, this is an important project. It's an important building, and keeping things moving forward to me keeps it in the right.
Yeah.
And the rationale for doing it off cycle is that it's mid-project, I gather, or could you
Yeah.
speak to that a little?
Yes, actually, so we were also, you know, with Stack, we pretty much finished, you know, the collection storage renovation project. So that's all interior work, except for this small amount of exterior work.
Mhm.
But we can't close out the project with them, you know, because right now the masonry on the outside is not completely finished. In other words, the mason has to come back and repoint, because we just stopped everything when this came up. We didn't want to put any more money into, you know, into this work. And so right now it's not finished. So it's bricked in, but it needs repointing, and also the mason did not do a very good job of matching the mortar. And so we're going to make them take that out anyway and redo it. But of course now it's like a whole different story. So anyway, then we were involved with, you know, creating the specifications and doing all that. And then by that time it was August, and our architect Andrew had a baby, and Vikram went to India for a month. So he was our Stack foreman. So now we're back at, you know, we were in September, and so that's when we finally got the numbers from Stack as to, you know, how much it was going to cost. And so then I followed up on pretty much immediately with Roberta to ask if we could come before you.
Okay.
So I think right now everyone wants to see this project just, you know, get done, so we can close out that, you know, FY22 project.
Okay.
For you, Barbara. I'm looking at the budget and there's no contingency anymore. Do you have any like backups or like any preparation if the contractor needs additional funds to complete this work?
I think I did put in 20% on top of their 95%. I mean,
Okay.
95,000, which raised it to, I don't know, 113,000 or something like that. And then I subtracted out the amount that, you know, we had already basically applied for. So the resulting difference was the 68,000.
Okay, perfect.
400, whatever. Yeah, so I mean, we don't need any other contingency just on this work, which, yeah, God, I hope we don't have to, fundraise more for this particular project.
No, yeah, I think 20% is wonderful. I just wanted to make sure there was some cushion because, you know, they
Oh, yeah.
they start to open up things and realize that there's a lot more issues and need to
Well, that's right.
do some additional
Yeah.
fixes and whatnot.
Yeah, I think the contingency might be needed on the repair of the original windows because, surely
Mhm.
there'll be some things with the others, but like, yeah, those could be a can of worms, but I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed that it'll all work out.
Just tell them you have a 5% contingency.
They don't need to know my contingency at
Don't let
all.
them know, right?
Yeah, that's right. They only see the budget they gave you.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, hold that in reserve.
Oh, I definitely will.
Unmarked bills in the basement. No, not in the basement. That's where they're working.
Yeah, that's right. Mm.
Are
Is
there
there
any
Okay.
other questions from the committee?
And to be clear, Roberta, this request was also reflected, I think, in the spreadsheet you shared earlier, right? So we,
Yes.
Yeah.
Share that spreadsheet again. So on the spreadsheet, I've bolded the two requests from this evening, so you've recommended the 113 and at question now is the 67. And I'm gonna undo that because I'm not sure how that's gonna affect my formulas down below. So, yeah. This was included in this calculation that I've shown you.
So, if there's any more questions, please ask them, or if anyone's prepared to make a motion.
I'll make a motion
Thank you.
that that this off-cycle funding request be awarded as requested.
I'll
Okay.
second that.
Great. So that was David and Eric, Roberta.
Got it, and I will call the roll. John,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Jahan,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Barb, I'm sorry, I'm just going through the screen. Ryan. And Joe.
Yes.
Thank you. So you voted unanimously to recommend funding for the $67,478 for the Somerville Museum budget increase. And I have in the draft recommendation letter the standard conditions, which are the same that you applied 2 months ago when they came to us. So I assume no changes in the conditions again.
Yeah, and Roberta, I abstain just because I'm doing a lot of work with Stack and I don't want to weigh
Okay.
in on this.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I
It's
not
all right.
call your name?
No, it's all right.
Okay, so that was, I think 6 in the affirmative, 1 abstain and 1 absent. Or 7 in the affirmative, 1 abstain and 1 absent. I'll count it later to make sure. All right, thank you.
Hey, thank you all very much.
Thank you, Barbara.
We really
Thank you for
appreciate
joining
your
us.
support.
Yeah. So next on the agenda, I've moved everything around on my screen, so I need to look for the agenda.
Kennedy schoolyard application.
So the preliminary review of full applications. I'm not going to go through these one by one, because this is just a preliminary review. I gave committee members all of the full applications so that you have a sneak peek at them. Next month, we will be inviting the applicants to come and present their applications. And I wanted to give you all the opportunity, especially given that we were asked to consider additional off-cycle applications this evening, in addition to the ones 2 months ago, that you had the full picture of what's on the table before you make those decisions. And you have the opportunity to, if you've had the chance to read the applications that were given to you this week, if you have any questions or requests for information that you'd like me to pass on to the applicants before they come for their presentation next month, I would welcome your comments.
I think I just want to jump in and elaborate on that, especially for members who are newer to the committee and for the old members, just to kind of review what's going to happen in the next several meetings. So as Roberta was saying, then in the October meeting is when the applicants present their applications, and we ask them questions. It's also the last day for amendments is October 18th, which is prior to the meeting. So if there is any amendment to be made, either because we have a question or because they have last minute information or whatever, that happens prior to that meeting. November is review the fall report and deliberate on projects. So we have both of the committee's report plus deliberation on the grant applications. And we should make sure tonight, before we all sign off, that we're coordinated on the November and the December dates, because there's the holidays in those 2 months and the schedule is slightly tweaked to adjust for that. And that's also the meeting in November where requested supplemental material can be presented. So if at the presentations in October, we ask for particular supplemental information, that comes in at the November meeting.
Right.
And then in December, we continue our deliberation and we approve our recommendations. And we also have voting of the officers for the next year's round. And then in the January, it all sort of starts again. Hopefully we won't be deliberating on any projects beyond December, although it can happen. So I think, that just to let you know, there's a couple of phases that happen with the grant application. So this is not your only chance to ask for supplemental information, but it is a chance to start to get familiar with the packages and the grants and the budgets and what the picture's looking like with the grant pool that year. Okay. While we're on that topic, can we just confirm the November and the December meeting dates?
Yes. So I'm actually going to open in your meeting packet in the committee planning subfolder is the CPC 2023 calendar. And that has the meeting dates through the end of the year. So November is November 15, and December, the meeting is on December 13. So those,
Are those
those-
both just 1 week early? Is that?
the November one is 1 week early, and December, I think, is 2 weeks early.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And then in January, we're back to the regular schedule again.
Okay. So I personally haven't spent much time with the new applications for the upcoming round, so I don't have a lot of questions about them this meeting.
Okay.
But if anyone else has questions, please.
I had a quick question related to historic. So my understanding is that typically when someone comes with a project seeking historic funds, there is a scope of work already pieced together. And I have seen in some applications requests for funds where there's not actually a scope defined, where it is a general to retain historic consultant or something like that. And I just wondered what precedent there is. I would be far more comfortable supporting something that I saw actually had a defined scope, whether it came actually from an architect, an engineer, whoever, or just the applicant themselves, versus kind of not a blank check, but just a blanket request.
So for example, the application from Vita Real for the condition assessment. The condition assessment is the scope of the project. So the purpose is to use a small amount of CPA funds this round to have an architect give them the scope that is needed to be able to pursue additional building renovation projects. I will acknowledge that I have dealt with projects where a sum of money is intended to fund both a condition assessment and an undetermined scope to be spelled out by the condition assessment, but that's not what we are looking at here. This is just for the condition assessment.
Okay. And so that would typically come in the form of like a proposal from a consultant?
So Vita Real is the property owner. They
Right.
own the historic building, and they're seeking estimates from different architects to carry out the condition assessment. I think that the version that you have in your folder contains one estimate, but they are continuing to seek additional estimates.
Okay, understood. So that's the basis, is an estimate they receive.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. I also want to acknowledge that in their application, the amount that's requested is not based on actual estimates, because they hadn't had any actual estimates yet as of when they initially submitted their application. So I think once they receive estimates, the committee can consider awarding only the amount that the architects request. Certainly, the city will not spend any more than the architects bill them for that project. But, you may decide to allow some flexibility in case there are cost overruns.
Got it. Understood.
I think in general, we've sort of learned that with a lot of these small nonprofits that have a big old historic building, that they really need this conditions assessment to organize their priorities and phasing and to get that expertise. So in some ways, we're trying to kind of push people towards that as a preliminary step when they have a really complicated building that's going to need a longer term kind of investment. Sort of learning from experience that they really need that lift.
It also helps to ensure if they have a qualified historic preservation architect working with them, it helps to ensure that they're prepared to meet the Secretary of Interior standards. Which it's very conceivable that property owners who have no expertise in historic preservation may, without the guidance of a qualified architect, may carry out projects that really don't meet the standards.
We hope that our own Historic Preservation Commission will avert those dangers, but it's a lot of pressure to put on them.
Yeah. It does make your life easier when you have a professional upstream from you, so you're not just getting any old Joe the contractor or whatever want to put a gutter on. I remember, I can't remember the details, but these projects come, I think they have to come to us before, to the Historic Commission before, I don't remember, maybe Roberta remembers how far in advance that process is before we would sign off on them as the CPC.
Yes, so they need to come to the Historic Preservation Commission for an advisory review. All historic preservation projects come to the Historic Preservation Commission for an advisory review. And then we would like to have a letter in writing from the HPC that describes the conversation with the applicant before we make our deliberations. So that letter ought to be given to us by the beginning of November. So that can be included in our deliberations, since our committee is deliberating beginning in their November meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, we adjusted the historic preservation eligibility form maybe a year and a half ago or 2 years ago to make it clear to the applicants that they needed to coordinate their application with the Historic Preservation Committee.
Okay. I mean, you'd think I would know that, having reviewed those.
It's fairly new in that we made that really much more clear to the applicants that was a critical part of the process.
And I'll be honest that the applicants have not entirely caught on with coordinating early. So we're still seeing this occurring later in the process than would be ideal. It would be ideal if they did it early enough to put it in their full application. But as long as they have it in before you deliberate, I think that's fair.
So working backwards from that, the last hearing of ours in which we could hear or discuss one of their projects before early November would be our second October meeting. And if that's assuming our staff has time to write a letter.
I think that it is on the agenda for that meeting. In fact, I think that today I had a conversation with Sarah White, and she said that she had to finalize the agenda today, and she wanted to confirm what are the projects that should be on the agenda.
Okay.
So the only preservation projects that you haven't already awarded are for Vida Real and Somerville Museum. Somerville Museum is for preservation of specific collections or artifacts in the museum. That's different from the building renovations that we've just discussed earlier this evening.
Right.
So another element, so one of one of the purposes for the applicant's meeting with HPC is to have an advisory review, just to have a conversation with HPC to ensure that their scope is appropriate. But the other reason for HPC to review projects is for projects that are not already determined to be historic artifacts or historic buildings, then HPC needs to make a determination of their historic significance to the city of Somerville. So there are a number of ways that buildings are already recognized as being historic before they even begin to apply for CPA funding. That could be because they're in a local historic district or because they are on the state register of historic places. So those, any artifacts that have already been documented to be historic automatically are eligible as historic assets. But for example, the Somerville Museum artifacts, some of the artifacts that they are looking to preserve with this grant allocation have already been determined to be historic and some have not. So if they have not already been determined to be historic, then we need that answer before they can be deemed definitely eligible. We may find that they're ineligible after they go through the process.
Okay.
And so, if I may ask a question, these full applications that you shared with us in the meeting packet are the only ones we're gonna have to review this year?
Yes, it's a shorter list.
It
In
is,
part-
yeah.
In part because you've just already recommended funding for 5 of the projects this round. So it's a total of 9, but 5 of them needed advanced
Review,
review.
yeah,
4 of them are not so time sensitive.
okay.
There were no requests from the church. That's been an ongoing, the other one on what's it, Perkins Street, the Cross Street Church?
Yes, it's the former Grace Baptist Church that is now the Somerville Hispanic Association for Community Development. They are chewing on a lot right now. They received ARPA funds in addition to CPA funds this past year. So the ARPA is going to be funding construction of an elevator in the building, which is really great news. To make the building fully handicapped accessible. However, not surprisingly, after they had compiled all of the funding to go into that project and done the engineering work for the project, they are going to need more funding than they received from ARPA to be able to complete the elevator project. So they didn't make it this month, but they will be coming to ask for a scope change for the last grant, the FY23 grant that we talked with them about last year. They're going to be postponing a portion of that scope so that they're going to request to commit funds directly to the elevator project because the ARPA funds have to be spent this year. And it would really be a hardship for them to have half of an elevator for a year while they wait to accumulate more funding. So they're going to ask to reorder the priorities that they brought us last year so that they can complete the elevator project. But like I said, they didn't make it provide their documentation in time for this meeting. So we'll be hearing from them most likely in the next month or 2. So it may be that since next month, we will only have 4 applicant presentations, perhaps if they submit their memorandum, we might be able to add that as a 5th presentation next month.
Okay. But that would
So
be.
that's a very good question. I planted you in the audience.
Well, it's sort of like, it seemed like we've had a lot of historic ones in the past years, and this is only 2 we're looking at this time, or 3. Just good. It's nice not to be way underwater with the budget this time.
Yeah.
So I had the Mystic River, the Mystic View scope. It seems so familiar to a previous award. Is it?
Mystic River Watershed Association?
Yeah.
It's for construction of the project that you funded design for last year.
Okay. I was like, this is the same area. Yeah, okay. That's
Yeah.
fine.
Last
Thank
year
you.
was a design request and this is for construction.
Okay.
Is there any other review for open space things, sort of like we just discussed for the historic, or does that come straight to us?
That comes straight to us.
Okay.
Although a difference qualitatively is that most of our open space, in fact, if not all of our open space and recreation projects, come to us through PSUF. Either PSUF is the applicant or PSUF is the primary partner in executing the project. So where most of our historic preservation projects are coming from either the private sector or city departments who are not necessarily our experts in historic preservation, you know, there's just a different stream that open space and recreation is coming to us from.
PSUF, you said?
I'm sorry. I'm using an acronym that's common in the city. The Public Space and Urban Forestry Division of OSPCD, which is John is a staff member in that division.
Okay. Sorry, getting my
Yes, and I will just say one thing. Like most of the projects do come from PSF, but there are a few like entities like Myra, this Blessing of the Bay project, where they're kind of the entity that's really pushing this task, and then they come to PSF and we need to sign off and say like we are in support of your project. And once they get that letter from our director Louisa, then they can kind of proceed with this application. But because it's like city-owned land, we need to sign off on like if we're in support of the work.
So I didn't see a city contribution in their budget. It was like they were applying for state funds and CPA funds and other funds, but there wasn't a city aspect to that. What does anyone understand?
Yeah, so we're starting to pursue funds for this. It's kind of like Myra's beating us a little bit, but that kind of works out well from the city side, because when we go to the CIP, the capital improvement projects, it's kind of our big funding source for all of our like larger projects, and coming to the CIP with smaller funding sources kind of helps us like expedite that process and get like the adequate funding. So we do expect to be receiving a large chunk of money from the city bonding.
Okay. Okay.
And I also wanted to call out earlier, Laura had mentioned a project from a few years ago that was a private developer who built a Luann David Park in the former school on Broadway. And in that case, PSUF did help with the design of that park. If I understand correctly, I'm looking at you, John, as if you know the answer, but you have no more history than I have. But that was PSUF as a partner in designing a project like that. So that is kind of an analogous involvement in vetting the project before it comes to the CPC for funding.
Okay. We have a couple of other items on our agenda tonight, adopt the code of conduct and any other business. So if maybe we can, unless there's any last questions about the grant applications that we received today and next steps, maybe we should move on. Okay. So code of conduct, I think everyone's been to the workshop and has sent in their forms. And I guess we've been asked to, as a committee, formally vote on adopting the code of conduct. So Roberta, I don't know if you want to put it up on the screen or
yeah. So you've all seen, this is the same code of conduct that you were asked to sign individually, and the administration has just asked that the committee vote to adopt this code of conduct as a committee.
So if I could have a motion, unless anyone sees a reason why we should not adopt a code of conduct. So maybe someone can make a motion.
I'm
Sure.
happy to make a motion to adopt.
Great,
I'll second it.
All
great.
right, I'll call the roll. John,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Laura,
Yep.
Jahan,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
and Joe.
Yes.
Great, it is adopted. I will turn in my homework and they'll take me off the delinquent list. All right. The only other thing that I wanted to do was to mention our outreach schedule. And well, first, member terms. I included in the meeting packets a file that shows where everyone is in their terms. And I just wanted to confirm, since there are a couple of terms that are coming up for renewal, I just wanted to confirm that folks are planning to renew, I hope. And also note that we need to elect new officers. I think I made this comment last month, but Heather wasn't here. So just to note again that we'll need to elect new officers in December. But coming up for renewal this year are Rose and Ryan, actually, even though you just joined us, unfortunately, you joined us for a seat that was about to expire this year. So so you'll be entering your second term for starting in 2024. So I don't know that there's anything more to say about this, but you're all welcome to. Oh, this is also out of date. I showed you a version earlier that had Joe Capuano on this, but you know what I did is I accidentally copied this from a previous month instead of putting the new version in. So my apologies, Joe, for not having your name on the version that I shared. So the only other thing is the outreach schedule. I will open that and share that quickly. So we've had some great events, and those of you, Jahan and Heather, got to see our brand new poster. Thank you to all of you for your input in designing it. It worked so well. I was so excited to be able to take that on the road at the Summer Streets event last week. So we still have a few opportunities on the calendar. This Saturday is Civic Day, and Laura has volunteered to come in from 2 to 4. But the whole event is 12 to 4. So I would welcome, I'll be there for the whole event, but I would welcome someone else joining me for from 12 to 2. You can feel free to call out now or email me offline if you want to review your calendar. Jahan will fight you if you try to take his place at this Monster Mashed Up. On October 22nd.
Roberta, I'll sign up for Civic Day.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Because I can't make Monster Mash and I want to do something.
Great. And there are also, if you can't make any of those dates, there are still some farmers markets. I don't know for how much longer the mobile markets are going. Those are very small events. I'll try to be there with you if I can, but they take place on different days, Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. And the Davis Square, I've Heather and I attended for the first half of the event. It's such a long day that I break it in over 2 different dates. And I haven't yet been for the second half of the Davis Square Farmers Market. So any Wednesday afternoon from here until I think late October, the market is running. So
I
I'd
think
welcome
the
any-
Wednesday one goes through Thanksgiving. The
Oh.
Wednesday prior to Thanksgiving is the last one typically. That's how they've done
So-
it in years past anyway.
Great. So we have time and
Yeah.
I'd welcome company. So, and we don't have to stick to only attending twice. So if any of one is moved to join me at any of these markets, I would welcome it. So let me know. And that's all I have for you this evening.
I think I will also just put a pitch that if people have ideas of organizations that we should get in contact with, partly because I personally would love to expand the applicant pool. So like the tabling's great in terms of getting people's input on how we should be organizing our budget, but I'd like to also kind of ramp up the like, how do we expand the applicant pool and get the word to more people that there are these funds available for these kind of projects. And so if people can think of, you know, a Main Streets organization that they have a contact with, or a Kiwanis Club, or I don't know, you know, some organization that has its kind of fingers in open space or historic preservation, or little small nonprofits that might be in these kind of buildings.
Do we have connections with the Chamber of Commerce? I'm not sure if they may have inroads to building owners that,
you know, or people are coming to them with things, and they could, if they were savvy about it, they could suggest it as a, you know, something
that's kind of what I was thinking, for them just gonna know, you know, if building
Yeah.
owner X, you know, or they want to put in a green, a green space or something,
that would be public. So if we could maybe start adding to your spreadsheet some stuff like that, Roberta, and people could maybe fill in names if they have it, or suggestions as they have it, so that we can try to.
Chamber of Commerce is having an event. My wife just mentioned to me, they're having an event in October, which is, I forget, some sort of kind of a meet and greet sort of thing.
Oh,
I can get, Roberta, I can get you that information if you're interested.
yeah, I think that would be great. So keep your thinking caps on and try to bring that to the outreach efforts, so we
Okay.
can continue to diversify.
But I do agree with your general sentiments. I feel like, just in the 2 years I've been on it, we kind of, it's the same people that keep coming back to us for a
Yeah,
while.
yeah.
Yeah, so some way to meet more people, and it also will help us as we have to recruit new board members in the future, that more people will,
Be aware of us.
be
and-
aware of us. Yeah.
Yeah, and our mission and stuff. Yeah, that's a good point.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Motion to adjourn? Should I make a motion to adjourn? You need that, right, Heather? Here.
Yes, we do.
Joe, is that a second?
Yes.
All right. I will call the roll. John,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Laura,
Yep.
Jahan,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Ryan, and Joe.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you all.
All right.
All right.
Good night.
Thank you very much.
Good
Thank
night,
you.
y'all.
Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.